Okay.
How to do better visuals. How we can all do better visuals. We're nearly there. So, in the UK, in London, we've got F10, we've got Pelican Media in Ipswich, we've got Model Works in London, Visualisation One in London, Miller Hare in London. They are the best visualisation companies in the UK. And around the world, Moscow, New York, Beijing, those are the other places where they have really good visualisation companies. So there's like 4 or 5 places where there are really good visualisation companies. We're near one of them. And the visualisation companies in the UK are near the best in the world, without much doubt. These are the best visuals. Some of these are the best visuals in the world. So some of the stuff done for Saudi princes or Russian oligarchs are going to be better because there's more money. These websites are good to go to F10, say Pelican, Sooner Interiors. Sooner Interiors, one idea with Elena is to get in the door. They do for Berkeley Homes or these companies, they do a kind of interior design package, a bit like Bernard did. Just a kind of spec, just an idea. It's never going to be built, but it's just to do the visuals from, to sell the properties. So they do these very elaborate, very beautiful schemes. And then they pitch, get different 3D companies to pitch for them, which we would like to pitch for, because they pay a fortune. $3.5 grand each. So this is a good place to be able to go. And if we can produce visuals of this quality, even getting close to this quality, our competition will just disappear. We'll win jobs all the time. The question is, can we do these? We can do these slowly and expensively. Yes, we can. Can we do them relatively quickly and cheaper? That's the difficult bit. The plus side is we've got lots of artists all at a good standard. And that's an enormous advantage. We've got a wide range of skills. But we can all do what we need to do to get pictures better. We just all got to do more of the same thing to get these pictures. Like what we did on Sunningdale is excellent. That's what we have to do. So, there's, I think, about 5 things we need to do. One of them we've already done, and we are better than most people at. Modelling. Our modelling is the best. He's the best 3D modeler I've ever seen. Quickest. Nothing he can't do. So we already win. We've got one of them already done. That was easy. Next one is yeah. Camera and composition. I'll do them one by one, that's the easiest way. So, real world cameras, obviously realistic cameras, so correct ISO. Try and use an actual camera, so it's 400 ISO, 200 shutter speed, f6 is a good kind of, if you had a camera and you were in a room and there was light coming through windows and you took a picture with that, you'd see a picture. We're talking interiors. Yeah, that's for interiors. So those settings, I mean, we can write them down, they're easy. F-stop. 6. Shutter speed, 200. Film speed, 400. ISO. So that's an interior camera. That's fast film. If you took a picture inside a room without the lights on in daylight and it had some windows, you'd see stuff. So that's a realistic camera. So there are ways of So a realistic camera numbers, and then the composition is the next thing. This is a big one. All of these pictures have a low eye line. They're all 1.3, 1.4, sometimes 1.2. And ever since I've been doing visuals, since I was 25, when I was doing watercolours, interior visuals are always low eye line. The lower, the more sexy and inviting it is. This is just above the chair. It's like 1 meter 100. but it makes you feel incredibly comfortable in a part of the room. The higher you go, the more distant you feel from the comfort and the less comfortable you feel. Clients always endlessly fighting about this. Because they think people want 1.7, so the camera should be up here, but it looks awful from interiors. Just see how low that camera is. So this one. This one, 1.2 maybe. 1.1. You know, super low, and it makes things look comfortable. You're part of the room. It's engaging. So a low camera, 1.2. Composition is more difficult, but you can get there if you try a few basic things. Composition is how to make things in the room that they want to see look interesting. So if it's a bath or a bed or out of a window, what are the things that work? There's a few things that work all the time. So that's your normal room perspective. Okay. What you want to do all the time, if you can, is get these lines more extreme than these ones. I mean, there's lots of ideas about why this works, but it never fails. This is a more pleasing visual than this one. You do a visual with the perspective lines like this, so the angle of the floor is very acute and the angle of the ceiling is stronger. This will look better, just for some extraordinary reason, than this one. All the time, every time you do it. Sofas look more, interesting along here. Things look more luxurious. One of the ideas is that most people's houses are this high. If you go into a huge, beautiful villa, the roof is enormously high, and you think it's luxurious. So the assumption is high roofs is luxury. So this feels more luxurious, more nicer to be in. So always try and get your camera angle low, and get this effect if you can. Try and avoid seeing three walls. If you can, sometimes you can't. This is a brilliant visual because you're only seeing two walls. You're seeing this surface and that one. Most really great visuals you see, it'll be two walls. I mean, that's a sheet. Two walls. Sheet, two walls. Kind of two walls. So you want a low eye line. You want to see, if you can, two walls. Now clients have endlessly fight about this constantly because they want to stand at the back of the room and see absolutely everything. So the battle is to get as close to this as you can. There's a nice chair, there's a coffee table right in the foreground, you can see everything. You can see the cushions, we can see the fabric on the cushions, everything's beautiful and up close as a lamp. And they'll say, oh, that's great, but we want to be the other side of the room. So you have to drag them back to this as much as possible. They won't want to do it, but if you keep showing them visuals this close up that look great, eventually they give in. Same with the eye height. Raise the eye height a little bit. Old trick is you say, yeah, and you build it up a little bit. And that way we want to keep the camera as close to the small part of the room as possible and keep the camera height low. Another nice trick is to have parallels. Like we did on the close-up there, we did at the table. One of the reasons that works so well is it's all parallel lines. That's a very pleasing visual. All that way. Same thing, all that way. Squares are always very good. Squares are nice as long as you have something symmetrical happening.
That's right.
So these are just compositional tricks, nothing to do with what's happening in the inside of the place at all. They're just ways that when you put the stuff in there, it will just look 10 times better than if you had a huge room with all four walls showing. So It's the same. They're doing the same thing. Basically, it's an elevation. The sun completely, coming in at the right angle there. Same thing. The sofa here is straight on. It's quite clever what they've done here, because this is quite a confusing line, and they've broken it up with this being the same as this soffit and the ceiling. It kind of becomes a back wall that's just. You don't suddenly think, oh, that's the I'd be tempted to put the glass in there and this bright sky, but they've mushed that into one kind of thing, and what you see is this strong, dark sofa. So that's all compositional. One of the reasons that works so well is the composition is lovely. The other thing this has got, which is a great one, is L's. L's all the time. L's are brilliant. L's, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a door, and then a shadow, and then a bit of sunlight. L's will always help visual. L's that are interlocking. So low eye line, nice composition. I mean, you move things about and try and get as close to the stuff as possible, and then we'll fight with the client about. So come back a bit, we'll come back a bit. I want to keep as close as possible. It is a big battle. Often you don't win, but if you do win, you end up with better than the pictures that you can show. Camera composition. HDRI, always. HDRIs are wonderful. They make everything 10 times easier. What I'm doing at the moment is I've got an HDR as the sun. I've got an HDR as in the reflection override. You know what that is? Yeah. So that overrides all the reflections in the scene. I've got a background image of whatever, could be white. I use white at the moment, it's easier. And I've set the, what is it? To zero.
When you say the HDR is the sun,
yeah,
is that as in a V-ray sun?
Yeah, a V-ray dome light with an HDRI loaded.
Okay, so a dome light with a V-ray. Yeah, okay.
What about the GI now? So yeah. So GI environment ticked 0.0. That avoids any unnecessary self-illuminated objects or suns or background images affecting the lighting. This way, we control how much light's in the scene with the sun, we control how much the reflection is from that, and that makes sure that nothing else in the scene affects the actual light. So if you turn that down to 0, it'll be black. So what I'm doing is I'm putting that in at those camera settings, putting that in 1, and then you always amend the render multiplier, so you leave the thing, so maybe that's render multiplier.
And the one is the light multiplier.
Never change
isn't it?
that.
The overall or the
That's
overall multiplier?
The render multiplier is in the HDRI.
Yeah, in the HDRI, in the environments, in the. So yeah, if you're in the material editor.
Oh, right. Well, I don't have one.
Okay. But yeah, in the material editor.
The overall, and then you've got the render.
Yeah, so overall, always stays at 1, never change that.
That's your light power, yeah?
Render just basically makes it dark. It's like somebody outside with a giant spot turning up or down. So what I'm doing now is I've got the scene, I've got this stuff in the background, I turn all this off. And with these camera settings, I then put an IES light in, a scene.
With everything off, it should be black, right?
Everything off is black. If I've got a background image, which, because this has been turned down to 0, is generating white light, that'll just generate white outside the windows, but it won't be lighting the scene.
Sure.
In an IES light. And I don't change its multiplier at all. So whatever that IES light, the number is, I don't know, 720, whatever it is. Whatever it comes in with. That's the light, that's an actual real spotlight, which actually has that value, and if you put it in a room, it would brighten the floor that much. So you do a render with that. If you can't see that, then you need to change this. You change this until you can see that light in a sensible amount, so it's not burnt out insanely. But if you imagine yourself standing in that room in the daytime, and somebody switched on one spotlight, what might you see? A kind of gentle pool of light. So that, if you do that, and that looks sensible, then that scene is naturally lit. Then you switch this on to like 1 or 2, and that'll be your sun coming through. And that will light the whole room. You can have an override material on the floor, which will generate white light. Instead, if you've got a orangey floor, an override material will generate white light. That should give you a naturally lit room. You can then you start cheating. So if you change the V-Ray properties tab of the floor to a number greater than 1, 1.2, light falls on the floor will be bounced upwards. And that helps you light the ceiling, the room itself. That way you should get a naturally lit room. Then the next thing to do is, what I do now is I turn up the sun too much. So this is...
Ask questions if you have questions, guys. If you don't understand something, ask.
Yeah. Say this is the sun here on the floor. This is white, burnt out completely. I'm happy with that. I want that to happen. Because we're rendering in 32-bit, we can change all that later. But by burning this out, it's generating more bounce light, which means less noise, and a nicely lit room with one light. If we can get to light a room with one light, it will look better by miles. If you can get as close to that as possible, it will look great. And now all these are obviously millions of lights, so none of that's going to work. But a good one, a simple one, what's that? Yeah,
here's a simple one.
That's there.
Look at this. This is Glenn's. Can you move this for a sec?
One light. It looks realistic because it's lit by the sun, and things, we know how realistic things are because we see it all the time. We're convinced of realism by the sun. It looks realistic because it's one light. When he switches on the wall light, it will look all right and nice, but it just won't look quite as good.
So when you say you make the floor burn, the light up the floor burn out.
Yeah, the sunlight shining, this HDR sun shining on the floor.
What sort of burn value? Like, you don't want it to just burn the whole image. Just
well, you don't have Reinhardt switched on in your camera settings.
Yeah, color mapping, right? You have
color mapping. Yeah, color mapping have linear. We want to see how much it's burning. If you have Reinhardt on, you're already crushing highlights. You're amending the 32-bit information in the image by using Reinhardt at this stage. So what you want is to keep using linear as much as possible. Yeah, we don't want the whole scene completely insanely white, but because you can say you turn the sun up to 1, you still saw the brown wood. Turn up to 2, it's a bit washed out. You want to turn up to 4. So the streaks of sun are overly burnt, but not the whole room. And then when you use Arion or Camera Raw, you crush those highlights, which is easy to do, and the rest of the room stays beautifully lit. and relatively noise-free. More light in a room equals less noise. That's difficult to achieve. If we can do it, it's brilliant. But the further you can get with just using one light, the better it is. Okay. And this is what we were doing the other day, and this is a big part of the next thing is textures. Materials. So we've got VMPP, which is brilliant. VMPP is lovely. We've got Polygon on the server, which are really high quality maps. Very high, way too big most of the time. 3,000, 8,000. They look amazing. The bigger the maps are, the better. And there's a way of doing, certainly the reflection with fall off, which I've showed for you, which is a good, you don't have to do it, but it's what VMPP uses, and it works really well. You can control the shininess of the wood, the fall off of the reflection, the fuzziness of the reflection, all independently. So you have a fall. It's really shiny but not too fuzzy and all that. And that's a really good way of getting things to look interesting. So I'd say VMPP. I'm going to call it fall off in reflection, but that's the method I've showed a few of you. That's a really good way to get materials to look good. Leather, wood, fabric. That works with all of them. Polygon. And what's the next thing I want to say? What's the other beautiful maps? I love these guys. XYZ texturing. These are beautiful fabric maps. They mostly do skin for movies, but they've also done fabrics. They're very detailed. They have a fantastic displacement map, which is built in 3D, which is 16-bit, which gives you the most perfect displacement ever. They also have an ID map, which is the fabric itself at a very small scale and how it's constructed, broken up into red, blue, and green. So if you imagine, these are the red ones. Oh, yeah. So this is millimeters small. That's the ID map. So red and green, let's say. There's a blue one as well, but that's just confusing. There's a few ways you can do it. It's this basically you do this at a relatively low level of fabric. So if your camera was right up close, about 20 centimeters away, you'll see it. Otherwise, you won't see it. But what you will see at a distance is a fabulous reflection, much more realistic than trying to get flat V-ray material to look reflective and not look plastic. It will reflect, but it won't look plasticky. You can have, for instance, you can have a green stringy fabric. You can get the grain of the fabric. Best explain it. Basically, you have a V-ray blend material. You have two materials within the V-ray blend. You have one going one way, which is the red ones, and one going at 90 degrees, which is the green ones. So when you look at it, you get, in very close detail, you get a set of fabrics, set of threads going that way, and another set of threads going that way, which is meaningless at a distance, but close up it looks fantastic. Underneath that, you have the displacement or normal map, whichever you want to use. Mostly normal now because the displacement's too slow. And also we make one of them reflective and one of them dull. What that means is, because of at a distance what you get is bumps that are shiny, but but quite convincing, and it just makes fabrics look better at a distance. This way, with the MPP wood, polygon textures, the fabrics done at this level. Whenever we do a chair or a sofa, we do them at this level. No matter how far the camera is, if the camera gets near, it'll always look like that. Yeah, these are nice. That's modelled, I think, on display. But this is what we want. We want this kind of level, you know, the furriness, the touchy, scratchiness of the fabric. Yeah. Well, that's a great one. So that's got fall off on it. It's got bump map on it. It's got displacement on it. It's got fabrics going different ways. There's a variety. There's a kind of blend mix in the fabrics as well. That level of detail makes fabrics look 10 times better. And also, in the end, it's less work because the fabrics already look brilliant from the render. So there's less fiddling about sticking. Fuckers. Anyway. Yeah. So, if we build a scene, what would be nice from now on, if we build a scene, we follow those rules about composition and lighting and stuff. This will really help things look good, believe me. If we make all our materials like that from now on, everything we build will be in the library, will have that sort of level of detail. One thing I will say is this battle between the clients and us to do nice visuals as opposed to giant widescreen crappy visuals. I've been doing visuals for years and years and it never has changed. It's always the same. When I was doing watercolours of city banks 30 years ago, they said, can we be down the end of Fetch for you? So it's always been like that, and the closer you can get to things, the better. There's always a kind of trade-off. We need to fight that battle a bit. We end up being able to present pictures like that. Somebody probably started saying, just go back. It's the kitchen. And they said, no, if you stay here, it will look brilliant. This will sell the apartment. You see the kitchen there, you see the pans in the kitchen. All that would just disappear into distance.
Like with Maddie Girl, we sent them one, they didn't like it. We sent them another one, they didn't like it, so we just sent them the first one again, basically. We just kept going back to what we liked. Yeah. And eventually,
it's a good deception. You move the camera a bit, you say you move, but essentially you're kind of sticking to what you think is right.
we could stick our brand.
Somebody says you just got to move, physically says there, I want it from there, and you have to do it. But if they keep seeing pictures that look nicer and better, and post. We've got lots of choices now. We've got the beautiful, wonderful Nuke, which is just streets ahead of everything else. Arion is okay for doing some things. It used to be trying to figure out what on earth it's about, but it's very weird. Normally what I'm doing is doing a 32-bit render, obviously, that's burnt out in the highlights. I render an EXR. The RGB layer of the EXR, I do Arion on it to crush the highlights and do a bit of Reinhardt to make it look a bit more filmic. I do the sort of glows. Arion does burned out glows from lighting fantastically. I mean, most realistic of all. I think better than human sometimes. I put that back as the RGB layer at the bottom. Then I put the reflection, refraction, specular layer on top of that and fiddle about with those. So this is in Photoshop. So I've got my RGB. This is an EXR. I've got written like this, RGB. specular, reflection. So this one I do with Arion. I haven't figured out a way, one of you guys probably figure out, is to make that smart layer, do the Arion stuff to the smart layer, and then have it just as a smart layer. Because what happens when they change their mind, you have to re-render it, you have to guess what you did to this one. If it was a smart layer, we could just put the new render in, and we do the same things again. But this, it doesn't, if you do this, it does that annoying thing in Photoshop where it changes it to 30, when you change it down from 30 bit to 16-bit, it blows out everything.
Yeah.
And I think the way to do it is you have to do that Photoshop thing when it says you're going from 32-bit to 16-bit and Photoshop does the conversion.
Oh, you know the way I do it?
That one, yeah.
The way I do it is I do a 32-bit file.
Yeah.
Once I made the change on 32-bit, then I collapse it, save that as 16-bit, and then do another 16-bit file.
But you get that little dialogue, that Photoshop dialogue. So
Yeah, but it doesn't change anything. If you collapse it and then do it,
if you change it only doing exposure, it shouldn't change anything. But I'm a bit wary about it. But at the moment, I'm just doing. So specular, reflection, refraction.
Blending methods for the layers.
Oh yeah, okay.
What's that top one?
Z depth. Sorry, my writing's so bad. Add.
they all add, are they?
Everything's add except for.
Is that in Photoshop and in Nuke that you put them in that?
Yeah, I think it's the same, isn't it?
It's called over.
In Nuke, what's called over in it?
What's the extra text here? Extra texture, multiply.
If you do multiply, it brings in the blacks. If you do like put it on a mask and invert it and put it in like an exposure, you can bring it down and make the exposure. Then you can bring the colors down without bringing in the black.
Okay. All that one. So everything's add except for that. I'll do Z depth in a minute. So at the moment I'm doing Arion to the RGB, then putting this stuff on top. Extra text there, and then that's all made into a smart object. Right click, select all the layers, right click, make smart object. Then you can convert that to 16-bit in mode. And it won't alter the exposure of the colours if you don't collapse layers. So then that smart object you can use camera raw on, which is all right, but I don't like it. I've fallen out of love with camera raw. It's too sharp. It's too 80s. It's CG-ish. Arion's nice. It does a bit of sharpness, but it's not the same. Camera raw's got a kind of thing.
Camera raw's limited, isn't it, in what you can do?
It's not. It makes things look. It's like, what was that Lancos filter? What was the old Max filter?
Area?
No, the old one that made everything look really sort of super sharp and CG-ish. It's a bit like that. It looks really great, but it's a trick. But it's all right for doing. It's very good for doing the exposure, crushing the highlights. It's very good for the blacks. It's very good for color correction. And it's very good for the sort of sliders for particular colors. If you want to boost green or boost orange, it's brilliant for that, which is a very good thing to do. Smart object, do your camera raw stuff, do your colours, then you've got an image. That's the basic camera raw way of doing it. Nuke is elegant and gets great results, but is limited. And Arion is good. I mean, people I've noticed on the internet who use Arion are people who do CG by themselves and don't have a whole lot of extra bits and pieces. They don't know Photoshop. It's good if you've got a CG render, a max render, and you're going to do some stuff to it. It's very good for that. This is easy to. I can take you through this system. It's easy to do, and then you do the the selection. Sorry, I should do this one. So that's smart object. That's the material ID pass. So this is now a 16-bit file. Within it is the 32-bit images. Do you get what I mean? So because we made that into smart objects, these are still 32-bit, so they're unchanged. They've all got their lovely 32-bitness. We can go back, we can render again, put them in there, they'll still be the same. What we're going to edit is the 16-bit, and so we can't edit material IDs in 32-bit. So now we can make selections of sofas, which would be here. So we make a mask, we select the sofa, group. So we make the selection, group, make a mask, color correction. Make the surface more green. So then we go through another stack. So this stuff has been squished into here, and then we get another stack of color corrections on top of the original PSD file. Yeah, that's the basics of that. The other thing, the general. Other thing I would say generally, and this is a really good thing to do, is when you're starting on a visual, you can build the shell. You look at the shell, nearly done. And a really good exercise is, well, you think, what am I going to do? What light should I put in? Is you just imagine yourself standing inside this room. It's midday. There's no lights on in the room. Physically imagine yourself standing there, and what would you see? Is there light swashing across the floor? Is it blue? Is it dark? Can you not see? Do you need a torch? And then if you have that, create a mental picture in your head of what it's going to be like. And it's much, much easier then to light it, because you think, well, that's what it's going to look like. And there isn't actually a right answer to that, because every person sees things differently. Every person, every room you visit is slightly different. There is no correct answer. There probably is physically correct answer somewhere. Somebody else has measured it, but nobody's looking at that. If it looks convincing as a visual, it's right. So one good example thing to do is to imagine yourself standing there, and then imagine yourself, if the lights have all been turned off, the same thing works. You can think, orangey, might not be, but as long as you have some kind of mental picture, that's a good way to get started. If you find that difficult, and everybody does to start with, is you just find pictures in magazines. I mean, this is the best. This is what I've been doing for years and years and years, and it's magazines are full of them. That's easy, that one. But I mean, just look at pictures in magazines, and you'll find lots of examples of how things actually look. And if you're doing, if you're in a kitchen, you just look through a kitchen magazine, you think, well, okay, that's nice, okay. I'll do it like that. Pictures in magazines, especially interior design magazines, are a brilliant guide. All interior designers read interior design magazines, and all interior designers think realism, this is a good point, They think what they see in interior design magazines is real. So most CG artists, certainly for these companies, make things look like they are in Architectural Digest. They don't make them look like they are mechanical drawings of a building. They make them look like this, like they're in the pictures of an architectural magazine, because that's what interior designers think looks real. So often what we're trying to do is make things not look real, but look like they're photographs, main thing, photographs, in a magazine. So if you look in magazines, you can always find something, I don't know, something to help you get the lighting right. That's a great example. So you've got a bit of burnout on the ceiling, you've got a bit of glow from the windows, you've got this stuff which we're always trying to get, which is the reflection on shiny floors or carpets of the daylight outside. And one last thing I'll say, this is it, is the great thing about 32-bit images is we can burn stuff out. And if you look at great photos of interiors, often what a photographer's seen, he's gone to a room or a palace and thought, oh, the lighting here is amazing because it's so burnt out extraordinary, all these reflections and stuff, and then he's turned down, he or she have turned down the exposure on the camera to just get the reflections and the burnout, but not to blow out the picture. So often what we're doing to make pictures look exciting is to burn them out and then bring them back into reasonableness. But that burnt out reflections, slightly overlit things, and then those things reined in is what makes visuals look exciting. That's a good goal to go for.
Nice.
Alex, you didn't mention
Thank you.
about your two-colour thing.
Two colours.
Right,
one more thing. It's incredibly cheesy visualizer trick which we've been doing for years. So, identify the two colours in this picture. Well, bone and French name.
Okay.
It is two distinct colours, but that is bone, that's French navy, that's French navy, that's slightly yellower, warmer, but it's bone and French navy, two colours. That's why that picture looks so good. I'm going to keep going. It doesn't work.
Here we go.
Any colour? Yeah, burnt orange and a nice blue. But look, the copper has been pushed, and they've definitely done this. They pushed the copper. I'd have had brilliant VMPP super shiny copper, and it wouldn't have worked so well. They pushed the inside of the light around here to the same thing. The highlight in the carpet, even the backgammon table. Yeah.
You'll find the same with woods. They don't want to have like 5 different colours of wood. They say wood with wood.
You'll be amazed.
One, maybe
Good
two.
visuals.
How are you going to get more of these?
It's difficult. It's really difficult. But look, see the green, the green, the green, and then they got this, the green. Then they got that.
The green?
I think they've even made the blue. They've got a bit of green
made a bit
into
green
the blue.
in the piano, yeah.
Right.
See, yeah. And the better the visuals are, the more disciplined they are. You think, how can they possibly make that work? It'll look so corny, but it works unbelievably well. It's very difficult to get people to do it, and the designers have probably gone for that from the beginning. So, certainly if you've got... Bernard Interiors would probably go for it. They were quite close with the bistro, that blue. If they had a corresponding orange of the chairs, if they pushed that everywhere, have little accessories, pots and pans, whatever, vases. That's a really clever one, this one. This is brilliant. Because this is the complementary colour to that. It's a brilliant thing. Because somebody said, let's put in this line, it's probably using like brown. And he said, no, let's make it light. No. Bang, the whole thing is, that's one of the nicest visuals I've ever seen. One light. One light, one HDR, and they've got a bit of warm light on here, and a bit of warm light. I don't like that.
Yeah.
You go, guys.
Nice.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks for listening.